Hey everybody, welcome back to DevRunner. My name is Paul, and today I am proud to have a very special guest on my channel. He is a running physical therapist. He's a running coach. He hosts the Healthy Runner podcast, and he's the founding owner of the Spark Physical Therapy website and service. He is passionate about helping runners to feel strong and confident so that they can stay healthy and pursue a lifelong running career and feel bulletproof doing so. Today, we're going to talk about his 5 tips for running strong and healthy when you're marathon training. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Duane Scotti to my channel. Hey, Duane, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Paul? Thank you so much for inviting me. I am super pumped to talk with you today.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here so much. I've been a fan of yours. I've been a follower of yours for a couple of years now, ever since we were first introduced through the RunBuzz coaching service. And it's just an absolute pleasure. It's an honor to have you here. And just to get right into it, I'm hoping you can just provide all the viewers with just a short bio, a short background, where you come from, and anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So as you mentioned, I am a physical therapist, run coach, host of the Healthy Runner podcast and the Healthy Runner Facebook community that we have. And really, I'm just passionate about sharing healthy tips for runners so we can become lifelong injury-free runners, because I myself was an adult onset runner, and I started running, I think, basically 10 years before you, Paul. I started running when I was 32.
Okay.
So when I was 32, I actually had hip surgery. So I had surgery to repair a labrum in my hip. So it was a labral tear. And I was always a kind of gym rat, so to speak, right? So kind of worked out pretty hard since college. And I would always just do running on the treadmill in the gym for cardio, right? You want to lean down for the summer months.
Gotcha.
And that was the extent of my running. And then I unfortunately had the surgery. And then my surgeon said after that, like, treadmill is the worst thing that you can do for where they do the surgery. It's in like the front of the hip. And because the treadmill kind of comes backward, it pushes kind of your femur bone forward. So he's like, go outside and run. And I was like, never done that since I was like a kid, you know?
Wow.
It's like, who runs outside? Just like the crazy people, right? That I drive by and, you know, try to avoid hitting. And so then I went outside and never looked back. I, you know, loved it ever since. I took on each of the challenges that I think most of, you know, the beginner runners go through, where you sign up for your first 5K, and then you're on that endorphin high and you're like, what's next? All right, let me try to run faster. And then what's next? A 10K. What's next? Half marathon. So, you know, 10 years later, 56 road races later, I would like to say, you know, the half marathon is my sweet spot. Run 24 of those now, and that's my favorite race distance. I have run one full marathon. So there's one full marathon medal behind me here.
Gotcha.
I'm thinking I will get back to that at some point when some time frees up, because as you know, the time commitment for training, there's a huge jump between the half marathon and marathon distance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't wait to talk about that specifically. You know, with that in mind, it's a perfect segue, because that's exactly why I wanted to speak with you specifically at this particular period in time, because I think everybody's beginning to see the light at the end of the COVID tunnel, and people are just starting to get into a training block, or maybe they're just kind of building their base so that they can be ready for that training block. And who better to talk to than somebody like yourself, who's just got just such a ton of experience and knows how to do this right. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with me and with everybody who watches my videos. Before we get into the real details of what everybody really wants to know here, I just want to delve a little bit into your background and know what got you interested in the health sciences and orthopedics and being a running coach in the first place. How did you jump from runner to this incredible well of knowledge?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, as a kid, I was always fascinated by the human body, right? And what it can do. And as a kid growing up, I actually, I played sports recreationally, nothing too formalized. I was, my formalized sport, so to speak, was actually dancing. So I was actually a dancer. So I did like all the routine kind of tap, jazz, hip hop, partnering work, ballroom dancing. That's how kind of we grew up in my family, and that's actually how I met my wife. So there was a benefit there in finding a lifelong partner who was my dance partner at the time. But so I really didn't run, in kind of my high school and college days, and went to physical therapy school. So decided I was always fascinated with the human body, went to physical therapy school, fell in love with it when I was going through school. It's like, yes, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. As I was going through grad school, wound up getting my strength and conditioning certification, wound up, working as a personal trainer, kind of started the whole, like, you're in college and you're working. And then when I graduated, you're making peanuts, and, now you're trying to survive on your own and pay for rent and all that. So I was working 2 jobs as physical therapist and then a personal trainer. So I've always been kind of involved in the human performance aspect of health, and, always involved in that. And then, professionally, I really went down the orthopedics route and, clinical specialties, and became certified as an orthopedic clinical specialist, and then went down the academic route. So then that's when I went, back and got the PhD and teaching a physical therapy graduate program, and started running, 10 years ago, like I said, at, age 32, and then just tried to really implement, honestly, a lot of what I learned throughout my career. I've always been involved in sports medicine. So I've always loved working with athletes. Adolescent athletes and active adults has always been kind of my bread and butter. And that's like the people I love to serve and work with. And then, wound up opening up my own clinic where I was really able to actually integrate more of the wellness and prevention model. And then that's where the run coaching came into play. And now how I help runners is through kind of a coaching program where we're not only helping you get over your, stubborn Achilles pain or shin splints or runner's knee, but we're also actually building out your run plan as well as your strength plan that you need to do as a runner to not only get over your injury, but then keep it from coming back in the future so you can be a lifelong injury-free runner.
With that said, sir, I want to jump right into your 5 tips for strong and healthy marathon training. If you don't mind just giving a quick bullet, and then we can just dive deeper into each one.
Yeah, so actually, thank you for that. And what I will do for your viewers as well, Paul, is I will actually give them kind of a freebie and give them a link to everything that we're going to talk about today. I pretty much have in a PDF kind of ebook. So it will have like specific, if we start talking exercises, there'll be the specific exercise videos that you can see over on my YouTube channel. So we'll kind of link it, kind of put it all together for you guys and make it in one kind of comprehensive package. But really kind of 5 tips to run stronger and stay healthy and be able to run faster for marathon training is going to relate to, I kind of keep it in 5. So like SPARK is 5, right? So the S is for strengthening, the P is for plyometrics, which means jump training, and the A is for adding in single leg exercises, because we need to train on one leg because we're always on one leg when we run.
Yep.
The R is for routine self-mobility or soft tissue care. So that recovery piece of things. And then the K is really keeping consistent and training smart with proper progression. So those are kind of the 5 elements that I've seen of all of the injured runners, right, that I've seen throughout my career. And like you said, is my focus now is to actually help the running community be able to prevent themselves from going into the PT office to get fixed, right? And to kind of change that whole model and paradigm to prevent these things from occurring while also actually enhancing our performance so we can stay healthy.
That is so well said. That last sentence, I think that's gold right there. Some people look at sort of preventative care, cross training and weight training and all that kind of strengthening work as something, well, I just want to run. but they don't realize you're doing two things with that. You're making yourself a better runner, and you're preventing yourself from, being sidelined. So I can't wait to get into this. Take it away, Duane.
Oh man. Okay, well, you're gonna have to cut me off because I can like ramble about this stuff. But so you want me to go a little bit deeper into like strengthening, why it's important, what muscles we should be strengthening, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Excuse me. Yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'd like to approach this. I've got two main audiences on my channel. I've got a lot of people who are just getting started with running, just kind of that novice marathoner. And then there's a smaller but significant audience of the more advanced who are really pushing hard, the people who are like trying to BQ, or the people who have already BQ'd a million times and they're just pushing to their own limits. And so if you don't mind, just kind of like, as we go through the 5 tips, just kind of differentiate what a beginner and a more advanced person would want to look at in all of those realms.
Cool, excellent. We could definitely do that. Awesome. So the first thing, let's talk about strengthening. And this is really, the reason I bring it up first is because this is the most common thing that runners don't like to do because they just like to run. And we've been told for the last 50 years that we should be stretching. And you might be thinking as a runner that your hamstrings are tight, and that's why you have hamstring pain. That's why you have knee pain. But trust me, it is not because your hamstrings are tight, and it's not because you need to stretch. The majority of you listening to this right now need to strengthen your muscles in order to actually run. So that's kind of the big premise, is that I want you to think of changing your mindset to training in order to run, as opposed to your training or your exercise for whatever goal it is, whether it's weight loss, to get healthier, lower your blood pressure, be a better spouse and parent, right? Is to run. Like, you need to actually train in order to do that activity, because the demands of running are great on your body. And as I mentioned before, I'm fascinated about the human body, and it adapts, and our bodies can adapt to anything, right? There are people who are running, like on my podcast, I had someone who ran literally across the country nonstop, a running streak, like 30 something miles every day, right? Like, who can do that, right?
Exactly.
But our bodies adapt if you allow it to adapt in the proper way. So in order to allow that to happen, you need to have strong muscles to actually control the stresses that occur with running. Every time our foot hits the ground, you're having what we call joint reaction forces that come up the ground, into your joints, up the chain, into your knee, into your hip, into your lower back. So if your muscles aren't strong to tolerate those demands, then that's where we start to run into runner's knee, shin splints, right? So it's a matter of strengthening your muscles in order to run. And there are a couple of muscles that I think are worth mentioning. In my blueprint, I mentioned 6 like key muscles. I'll mention the ones that most of your listeners probably have never heard of or focused on or even thought about, right? And these are the common culprits that cause IT band pain, runner's knee, shin splints, Achilles, plantar fasciitis, right? So these are the ones that I've assessed on patients for 18 years now, and commonly find these muscle imbalances. So let's actually tap into these muscles first to prevent those types of injuries. And those are your side hip muscles. So your gluteus medius muscle, which is, everyone knows the glutes in the back, right?
Yep.
Glute max, which is an important muscle. It's the biggest muscle we have in our body. Yes, it helps us get up hills. It helps prevent us from having hamstring tendon pain. But the side hip muscle, super important if you have knee pain. So you need strong side hip muscles, because the biggest thing, and I just did this with one of my clients the other day. I analyzed all of my clients' gait on a running video, and we look at the level of the pelvis. And if you get a pelvic drop by a certain number of degrees where you're dropping down, when that happens, your pelvis drops, your knee goes in. And that's the biggest causative factor to getting IT band pain and runner's knee. And the literature supports that. It's out there in the research. We know that. So if we can keep that pelvis level by actually using those side hip muscles,
Yep.
then we're actually able to prevent those negative consequences down lower into the chain. So the gluteus medius side hip muscle, that muscle does work whenever we do single leg exercises. So that's kind of my segue to the single leg exercises. But that's one big muscle group. And then the other one is the deep hip rotators. They're small little guys deep in our hip under the glutes. They control the rotation of our long bone, our femur bone. So if that muscle is weak, especially if you have flatter feet, you've been told that you have low arches, flat foot type, you've been told to run in a stability shoe, then you really need strong hip rotator muscles to control that excessive motion that occurs when your foot hits the ground and the knee goes in. So those hip external rotators, which are basically, there's a bunch of small muscles. The one you guys probably heard of is the piriformis. So that's the biggest of them. The piriformis muscle is what I'm talking about. Is you need to do some isolated strengthening exercises for that muscle, and then also work that muscle in a standing position. Not only do you guys might have seen like the standard clamshell exercise, lying on your side, not only do that, but now let's transition to standing, because you stand when you run, right? So we need that specificity of training principle to actually kick in the muscle in standing, so that when you're running, you're actually using that muscle as well.
Gotcha. Now, there's a couple of points I just want to kind of interject here, that I'm living proof that getting on this type of exercise regimen makes all the difference. Duane, as we were saying before we started rolling tape here, I've been running for like 10 years. The first 5 years of my running career were absolutely plagued with injury. And that's when I started getting into weightlifting 3 times a week and doing daily kind of core routines that work everything from my hips, through my, on up. And if anybody watching this has doubts about whether it is worth your time to do more than running and to start strengthening your whole body, look no further than me, because I tell no lies here. The second I started, by the time I was about 3 months in and my body started making those strength gains, I've been injured now in a very minor way twice, 2 times in 5 years, and they never took me out. They never stopped me from running. It was something that I could continue running, but had to do, extra compensatory exercises to make sure that I stayed healthy. But yeah, I mean, everything you just said, Duane, is just, I can't stress enough how true it is. So this is all,
and I've been there before as well, Paul. Like when I started running, I got all the common injuries, basically, like hamstring tendon pain, we call it proximal hamstring tendinopathy. I've had runners knee, IT band pain, plantar fasciitis. So I've done those things. And what I've learned the most over these last 10 years is that runners need to strength train in a different way than bodybuilders do, right? So I kind of mentioned I was a gym rat, right? And always loved the bodybuilding type workout, right? We're going to do chest on Mondays, and we're going to do back on Tuesdays, and then we're going to do arms, and we're only doing one day dedicated to legs, right? Where I started actually strengthening as a runner on one leg, hitting these specific muscles, that I really noticed the gains. And I would say that's definitely the difference maker in all of the runners that I help nowadays, is to do more run specific strengthening. Because yes, if you tell me like you're going to do nothing versus doing like a standard boot camp CrossFit class, I'm going to say that's better than doing nothing. The only problem that I see with a lot of those boot camp style classes and CrossFit classes is, number one, there's a lot of repetitive motions, and running is already repetitive in nature as it is. So you're really opening yourself up to, especially like IT band pain that I see a lot in runners. If you're going to do 50 squats, because that's the WOD of the day, or you're going to do like 3-minute song in your class that's like repetitive lunges for the 3 minutes, then you're opening yourself up to repetitive injuries that you're already doing a repetitive sport as it is, right? So that's my first thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of those classes and exercise programs are very, very biased to being on two legs and not being on one leg. So you don't
Yeah.
see a whole lot of single leg exercises, which again, as I mentioned, when we run, we're always on one leg. So it's so important to actually train on one leg in order to have success and build that strength that you need to build in order to run in a healthy way.
I'm glad you say that, because a lot of the studying that I've done as far as, cross training, strength training goes, the more recognized names in the field all speak very specifically about making sure that you cross train with activities that are similar to the running motion. And I think that's very important, because as you just finished saying, if you're doing too much that's high impact, if you're doing too much that's stressing those same muscles and those same tendons and ligaments, etc., beyond what you're already expecting from them in running, then you may be pushing your luck a little bit. So I'm very glad to hear you say what you just said.
Yeah, indeed. And so I think we probably hit, the strengthening aspect that probably drove that point home, which hopefully I got my point across that it is important. And then the next tip really is to actually jump train, because running is actually hopping from one leg to another. It is plyometric in nature, meaning your foot's hitting the ground, your muscles actually are decelerating your body weight as your foot hits the ground, and then they go through this rapid changing phase and they propel you forward so you can move forward, right, and be able to run fast. So your muscles actually function plyometrically when you're running. So why not train them plyometrically with jump training exercises so you can get them more efficient, you get more pop, you're pushing off the ground a little bit faster, you're improving that cadence, right? That turnover time. We know that is important at kind of injury prevention. So definitely adding in plyometric jump training into your program. I usually recommend for all of my runners to do that once a week. And you don't need to do a whole lot. You focus on quality, not quantity. Doing good 6 to 8 reps of quality jumps and focusing on soft landings and springing right back up. So you're training your central nervous system, your brain sending the signals down to those muscles that when my foot hits the ground, I pop right back up. So that gives you more of that explosive nature, trains different muscle fibers, which we call our type 2 muscle fibers that we have in our bodies. And those are the ones that you really rely on when you look at the marathon distance and you get to mile 20 and you're starting to hit that wall and you're starting to fatigue those type 1, those slow twitch muscle fibers. If there are some type 2 fibers that actually are convertible and you can tap into when we start to fatigue. So the more that you actually train those type 2 muscle fibers, then that's going to help you from hitting that wall late in your marathon. So there's really multiple benefits, as well as honestly strengthening our tendons. So Paul, as you and I know, as we age, our tendons are most at risk. So that Achilles tendon pain, even the plantar fasciitis, it's not truly a tendon, but it acts like that. The hamstring, the patellar tendon pain, all of those conditions, it's really important to load your tendons to strengthen those tendons. And the best way to do that is actually with jump training. So it kind of helps improve that elasticity in our tendons and keeps them healthy along the way.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I can't wait to jump into some of your training exercises that you provide, because in all truth, I've done a lot of explosive heavy lifting to try to get better with that explosive speed and to be able to compensate for that incredible tiredness towards the latter stages of a marathon. But I'm very limited in my experience with plyometrics, but it just seems like the next logical step, especially for us more mature yet experienced marathon runners. It seems like it's a great way to fill a gap that may still be there for some of us. So.
Exactly. No, great point. Thank you for bringing that up, the difference between the novice and the experience. So for my novice runners, they don't start with jump training until they have that foundational strength already. So you kind of need that foundational strength of kicking in those run specific muscles that I mentioned. And you have a nice base, just like base training, right? Base level of strength before you actually start to jump. And then there's different levels of jumps, like I have on my YouTube channel, 3 different levels of progressions. But definitely for the advanced runners, you're right, Paul. Like, this has been a game changer for a lot of advanced runners that are not doing jump training. And again, timing wise, you don't add this stuff in mid-training cycle or at the end of your training cycle, or, we're all getting ready, right, for fall marathons. You're not going to start doing these in like August and September. Like, you should have actually been doing these all winter, tell you the truth. And now heading into spring, we're starting to do different types of jump training. So we have like a team-based half marathon training program. So we're kind of progressing those jumps. Gotcha. And then as we get ready for our goal race, we're going to run a half marathon in mid-July. Then we're going to actually take away the jumps when we're peaking in that training cycle. Okay. Because our bodies can only take so much stress.
I was going to ask you exactly about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so it has to all be cycled, and you should have periodization or cycling in your training in the calendar year, but then also in that training block, there should be some periodization within that training block when you're peaking in your mileage and you're having those hard effort speed work sessions. Then you don't want to have a hard effort jump training session at the same time, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to overstress, especially at that, when you're approaching, say, like the third mesocycle in for any race, and you're stressing your body that hard because you're running a ton of miles and there's so much speed work involved. And then I would imagine if you're going to have plyometrics in there too, that's you're right on the knife's edge. So you got to be real careful. So
that's when you back off.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad to hear you say that. It's just, this is all so well thought out, and this is exactly the kind of thing. It exemplifies why I wanted to have you on, because you've got so much experience with this, and you've already thought about this, and you've already got it down, and I'm really hoping that this benefits the novice marathoner, as I said, and the more experienced who's looking for that extra little edge to get them. Mm-hmm. Including myself. I feel very selfish actually, because I'm learning so much that,
aren't we all? Hey, that's why I haven't, loved bringing on guests on my show, on our podcast, because I'm learning too. It's like, I'm going to learn and try to get every edge that I could possibly get. So I completely get it. I completely understand. And I think if we can kind of segue to that kind of third tip, I think I've already mentioned it, but really adding in single leg exercises. There's so many good single leg exercises you can do for your quad muscles that you don't need to add heavy load. I'm not saying don't ever lift heavy, don't ever do squats, front squats, and you want to add load. Again, there's a time and place for that in your training cycle, but doing a single leg squat is actually very hard just with your body weight and getting good control and getting good single leg stability. So that's super important. And then really the fourth tip is really taking care of your joints and your soft tissue structures. And this is really where, kind of in this bucket, is where I like to combine your recovery tools. So whether it's foam rolling, whether it's your massage gun, whether it's your rolling stick, whether it's stretching. So I kind of put stretching in here because stretching does have its place for recovery after your runs, where you want to add in that static stretching where you're holding 30, 60 seconds to restore those muscles back to their resting length. But really dynamic stretching or active stretching before your runs and before your workouts in the gym or in your home. If you're still doing your workouts in your home. I have some, actually, if you snoop around my YouTube channel, you'll see many videos of me with my Home Depot bucket with bricks, because I couldn't buy a dumbbell or a kettlebell in 2020 because everyone scooped them up on Amazon. So I had to be innovative. So you'll see me doing some various run specific exercises with a bucket of bricks as well as my mall axe. Yeah, so
there's always a way. There's always a way to get it done, right?
Yeah, that's so awesome. you gotta use your resources that you have in your house, but you honestly don't need a lot. And that's like another common question I get from runners that are starting strength training for the first time is, do I need a gym membership? The answer is no. And do I need any fancy equipment? You really don't. there's so many great body weight exercises, or even just taking one of the small mini bands that you can get those all important hip muscles. It really honestly starts at the hips, right? Like as Shakira says, hips don't lie. Those muscles are key to protecting your knees and your feet and your ankles as runners. So it all starts up at the hips. So don't forget that tip. And then really my final tip, Paul, is really nothing that relates to anything I learned as a physical therapist, that I learned as a strength and conditioning specialist. Well, a little bit actually strength and conditioning, but it's the training piece. And this is what brought me to becoming a certified run coach, was the training, because I can fix people up. I can, look at their flexibility, their strength, and find out where the muscle balances are and give you exercise for that. But I was constantly seeing runners who were going out there and just not training properly and just not knowing, right? And just going out there every time hitting the pavement thinking they should be running fast because they want to get out there for exercise and they think I want to burn calories, so I got to run fast. It should be hard, right? If I'm running, I should feel like I'm working really hard and I'm doing like an exercise class that you might have done, or doing like a Zumba class where you come out sweating. And in fact, in order to be a healthy runner and do it for the long run, you want to have those easy conversational paced runs and go out there where you and I can have a chat, Paul, while we're running, and we're still getting in our training. We're getting in those beneficial miles under our legs. We're building up the base. So it was really the training aspect of training smart with proper progression, knowing when to add in your speed work, knowing when to, add in those threshold, those tempo runs, or your interval work. And then for the advanced, marathoners, if, again, just like strength training and plyometrics, if for some reason you have not been doing intervals and speed work, then that's going to be a huge game changer if you're looking to get a PR, right? So that's one thing, is you add that in a progressive fashion, in kind of a calculated intention, and make sure that you're hitting the times that you need to hit for those pieces. That's going to be a difference maker and get you a PR. So it's all a matter of kind of combining those training elements and that's where, a run coach comes in handy, where it can take the guesswork out for you. And, there's only so much content. Like, you have a lot of great content on your YouTube channel. I have, a lot of content on the podcast and in our Facebook community, but there's only so much you can take in and know what's exactly right for you. So, anyone who's listening, if you know a great run coach, then I highly recommend getting a coach to really just honestly steer you in the right direction and to really give you the clarity and focus that you need to be able to, add those elements into your training that are going to actually make a difference for you.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. There's so much to learn, especially when you're a beginner runner and moving up to that marathon distance. It's overwhelming. And there's a lot to learn. It's a slow progression. It takes years. And the point that you made to start that section of running easy, especially as a beginner, build that base with easy conversational pace running, is huge. Don't go out there and just willy-nilly just start running fast all the time. Everything should be with intention. You should understand why you're running every run the way you run it. Don't just go out there and just hope for the best. There are tried and true ways of doing things, and I'm so glad that you spelled some of that out today. All right, thank you so much for that, Duane. Having been through those 5 essential tips, I would like to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about a general piece of advice that applies to all runners across the board that everyone is going to benefit from.
I think it has to go to my foundational principle of train in order to run. So this is the second time you're hearing me say this now, but you are an athlete. So just like athletes need to train for their sport of whether it's baseball, whether it's gymnastics, right? Think about any athlete. You're an athlete and your sport is running. So you need to train in order to do that sport in a healthy way. And it's not only doing the sport, right? So it's not only running. Like, baseball players don't only play baseball, right? They actually train in order to play baseball. Same goes for all sports out there.
So well said. And I think it ties into everything that you said before that. It's just exactly, have a strong body, understand why you're doing everything, and you'll become a better runner. With that, Duane, I can't thank you enough for being here, because you've said so much, you've provided so much great information, and so succinctly. I want to encourage everybody to get out to your various resources that you have online, whether it be the podcast or website. Please, even though everything's shared below, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your different social media outlets and what people can find on each one.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely want to mention YouTube, since I know, a lot of your viewers will be here on YouTube watching this, but we have the @SparkYourTraining YouTube channel. So on there, I have over 200 videos for the runner. So they are all live podcast episodes that I do on the Healthy Runner podcast, which you can also listen to during your runs. So if you want to get those long form information during a nice long run, keeps you, like, I listen to podcasts all the time in my easy runs. So you can listen to it there, but on the YouTube channel, you can see the video versions of all the interviews that I have with experts in the field. I also do deep dives into any of the common running related injuries that we mentioned today, whether it's hamstring tendon pain, IT band pain, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, Achilles pain. Like, I have trainings on all of those, on how do you treat them, what are they, do you have it? So you can get those on my YouTube channel. You can search, and then you can find all exercise ideas as well. Every single exercise that I have in my strength program for runners, where I've really basically provided you 6 different workouts in a progressive fashion, phase 1, phase 2. All those videos are actually on my YouTube channel. So they're there for you for free.
Awesome.
Whether or not, hopefully you can put them together, right, and know which ones to do when, but that's where, the strength program comes into play, is kind of putting it all together for you. But all the videos are there, so you can get some great exercise ideas on, and in the comments section, I try to educate and, let you know, like, what muscle group you're working, why we're doing it, what's the purpose of this exercise. So you can get them all there on YouTube. And then I mentioned the podcast. Home base is sparkyourtraining.com. On the website, you can find out more about a lot of the programs that I do in terms of coaching and how I work with runners that we mentioned earlier as well, through my high touch point kind of coaching program, where I'm your physical therapist and run coach all in one, getting you to be a stronger, faster, healthier runner. So you can be able to run that marathon, this fall without kind of your body breaking down like it has in the past. So that's kind of how I help runners now. And I think and then Instagram too. So definitely, I know you're on Instagram as well. I follow you, and it's all at Spark Your Training on Instagram, and there's daily content posted there. And then, how can I even forget this? Our Healthy Runner Facebook group and our community is actually very, very strong community, and I have a team of run coaches that actually run that group with myself. And we provide daily content, like next level content too. Really, really good tips and health information for you as a runner, and not only from a physical therapist perspective, but from, a coaching standpoint, nutrition standpoint. We have a bunch of RDs in the group who provide content, psychologists, mental, mindset,
Awesome.
right? Like mindset stuff for running. So that is definitely the community and the way, Facebook groups work, that allows for that interaction a little bit more. And that's where I go live every week for my podcast episodes, is within that group, and answer questions. So I take live questions. So, if we're doing a training on Achilles pain and you have Achilles pain, you show up, you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. So that's been really fun, and just interacting with the audience. And that's kind of been my passion. And it's something I started like 2.5 years ago, before I even started the podcast. And it's been just growing, and I love the support and the community that we've built over at Healthy Runner.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the biggest, most important things as a runner, is to have a community around you to keep you motivated, to keep you inspired on those days. And because we all get them, when you're just not in the mood to get out the door. But when you've got people there who are enthusiastic, it really helps, and as you said so many times earlier, when, during this interview, consistency is key. So, thank you again, Duane. You have no idea what it's meant to me to finally speak to you. There's just so much knowledge. I encourage everybody just rewind and watch this whole thing again, because there's so much to learn. And then head on over to Duane's various social media outlets, because as he just outlined, just an absolute wealth of knowledge in all of those places. So Duane, thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy the rest of the week, enjoy your weekend, and I will be in touch again soon, I'm sure, because we've only scratched the surface on all the different ways that you can help runners. So thank you.
Indeed, thank you for having me. This has been super fun. Whenever I have a chance to honestly take an hour of my day and just chat about running and health, like, I'm game. So thanks for inviting me on, and I look forward to seeing you on the Healthy Runner podcast sometime in the near future.
I appreciate it, sir. The opportunity is so much appreciated. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
You as well.
All right, bye-bye.